The sun was burning orange and red when old Marcus stood at the broken fence of his dying ranch. His hands held the wooden post, weathered, cracked, tired like everything else around him. The desert stretched forever in all directions. No green, no water, no hope. Just dust and heat and the slow death of everything he had ever built. Marcus was an old cowboy. His hair was white. His face was like leather left too long in the sun. He had wrinkles around his eyes from squinting at distant horizons his whole life. But his eyes were kind. Even now, when everything was falling apart, his eyes were kind. The ranch was small. Just 40 acres of brown dirt, a wooden house with a roof that leaked, a stable that needed new boards, and maybe 15 horses. These horses were not beautiful. They were not strong. They were like Marcus, old, forgotten, and waiting for the end. Among all these horses was one that nobody wanted. Not even Marcus wanted him at first. His name was Ash. Ash was a colt young, maybe 3 years old, but he was different from all the other animals. He was small, too small. His legs were thin like branches about to break. His body was skinny. You could count every rib on his side. His coat was dull gray, not shiny like a healthy horse. When he walked slow. When he ran like something was hurting him deep inside. The vet had come 2 years ago. He was a young man named Dr. Collins, who wore clean clothes and knew about animals. He looked at Ash for maybe 2 minutes. Then he said, "Marcus, this one is broken. His legs will never be strong. He will never be a good horse for riding or work. God made him weak for a reason. Sometimes the kind thing to do is to let him go." But Marcus did not let him go. Nobody knew why. Marcus was a poor man. He did not have money to waste on a weak horse that could not work. But every morning, Marcus walked Ash's stable first. Before feeding the strong horses, before doing his own work, Marcus brought water and food to the small gray colt. And he never spoke harsh words. That was the strange thing. Marcus never hit Ash. He never shouted at him. He just stood quietly beside the colt and watched him drink. Sometimes Marcus would touch the horse's neck, not hard, but gentle, like he was saying something without words. The other horses on the ranch ignored Ash. They pushed him away from the water trough. They would not let him eat with them. They knew he was weak, and animals understand weakness like a hunter understands blood. They did not want to know a weak horse. Weakness was dangerous. Weakness meant a slower speed when a predator came. But Ash never fought back. He just waited. He would stand alone in the corner of the pasture and wait until the strong horses finished eating. Then he would come and eat what was left. This happened every single day for 2 years. Marcus watched this every day, and his heart broke a little more every day. But he never stopped coming. 3 months ago, the drought came. This was not a small drought. This was a big one. The sky became white-hot. The grass stopped growing. The rivers went dry. The dirt turned to powder. Animals across the whole region started to die. Marcus had a problem. He had 15 horses, but only enough food and water for 10. He had to make a choice that broke his heart into pieces. He decided to take his 6 strongest horses to the market 2 days away. He would ride them there and sell them. The money would buy food and water for the rest. It was the only way to keep his ranch alive. But Ash could not go. The colt was too weak for a long journey. 2 days of hard riding would kill him. And Marcus did not have the heart to take the weak horse to the market anyway. The horse traders would see Ash and laugh. They would beat him, maybe. Or they would just shoot him and leave him in the dust. So Marcus made his choice. Ash would stay behind. On the morning that Marcus left the ranch with the 6 strong horses, he walked to the stable to say goodbye to Ash. The colt stood in the doorway, watching the old man. Ash's eyes were big and dark and sad, like he understood what was happening. Marcus looked at the small gray horse for a long time. He did not speak. He could not speak. His throat felt closed up, like there was a rope around it. Instead, he reached out and touched Ash's nose soft, warm, alive. "I will come back," Marcus said quietly. "I promise you, boy. I will come back with food and water. You just have to stay strong for a few days. You can do that. I know you are weak, but your heart is not weak. Your heart is the strongest thing I ever saw." Ash made a small sound, not a full neigh, but something quieter, something like crying. Marcus walked away without looking back. If he had looked back, he would have fallen down on the ground and never gotten up, so he did not look back. He rode away with the 6 strong horses, heading toward the distant market town. The sun was hot on his back. The dust rose up around the horses' legs. The old cowboy did not look behind him, even once. He did not know what was about to happen. He did not know that his choice to show kindness to the weakest animal would soon become a legend that people would tell in saloons and around campfires for years to come. He did not know that Ash's heart was about to do something impossible. The ranch grew quiet. The stable door closed in the wind. Ash stood alone, watching the place where Marcus had disappeared into the dust and heat. The food would last only 9 days. The water would last maybe 7. And that is when everything changed. That is when the mystery began.
The first 3 days were the hardest days Ash had ever known. The ranch was silent now. The sound of horses' hooves was gone. The smell of Marcus was fading. Only Ash remained, walking slowly through the empty pastures, looking for something that was no longer there. He was alone in a way that animals understand better than people do. The food Marcus left was stored in the big wooden shed near the barn. There were bags of grain and dried hay stacked against the walls. Ash had watched Marcus prepare this food many times. The old cowboy had measured it carefully, counting out each portion, trying to make it last as long as possible. But Marcus had made a mistake in his counting. He did not know the drought would be so bad. He did not know the heat would be so heavy that it would burn away water from everything it touched. He did not know that 9 days of food was all he could leave behind. On the first day, Ash ate slowly. His stomach was not used to being very hungry. He had always eaten something, even if it was just leftovers from the stronger horses. But now, with the food all for him, he could eat as much as he wanted. He should have felt happy. Instead, he felt afraid. Something inside his weak body knew that this extra food meant something bad was coming. On the second day, the heat got worse. The temperature climbed higher and higher. By the middle of the day, the ground was too hot to stand on for long. The rocks burned if you touched them. The metal fence posts were hot enough to burn skin. Ash stood in the shade of the old barn, barely moving, barely breathing, tried to keep his body cool. He drank from the water trough in the morning and evening, but the water was getting lower and lower. The trough was not very deep. It depended on the water pump that Marcus used every day. But Marcus was not there anymore. No one was pumping new water in. The sun was drinking the water faster than anything could replace it. On the third day, something changed in Ash's mind. The Colt understood that Marcus was not coming back soon. Maybe he was never coming back. Maybe the old man had decided that a weak horse like Ash was not worth saving. Maybe Marcus had just ridden away and forgotten about the small gray colt that nobody wanted anyway. His thought made Ash move differently. He stopped standing in one place waiting. He started to walk. He walked from the stable to the pasture. He walked from the pasture to the fence. He walked around and around the ranch, searching for something. His thin legs ached. His body was tired, but something deep inside was pushing him to move. On the fourth day, the food ran out. Ash stood in the barn and looked at the empty bags. They were just brown cloth now, with nothing inside. He could smell the grain on them, but there was no grain left to eat. His stomach made sounds like crying. His throat felt dry, even though he was drinking water. But the water was changing too. It was getting darker. It was getting warmer. By the afternoon, it tasted bad. The trough had turned into something that was not clean. There were bugs floating in it. There was dirt from the dust storms that had come the night before. Ash did not want to drink it, but his body needed water more than his nose wanted fresh water. So he drank, and he got sick. His stomach hurt. He lay down in the barn and could not move for hours. On the 5th day, the water was almost gone. Just a few inches sat in the bottom of the trough. When Ash drank it, he could feel it was warm like blood. The color was brown. This was not real water anymore. This was just the memory of water, the ghost of something that once was. Ash did not know how long he could live without food and water. He was young, but he was weak. Weak things died faster than strong things. He knew this. Every horse knew this. But on the 6th day, something happened that changed everything. Ash was walking in circles again, looking for something to eat, something to drink, something to make the pain in his stomach go away. He was walking past the north fence line, the part of the ranch that was very old. Nobody used this section anymore. Marcus had told him stories about it, sometimes stories about the time before, when Marcus was younger and stronger, when other horses had lived here. There was a gate in this fence. It was an old gate, made of wood that was gray and cracked and falling apart. Marcus had locked this gate long ago. Ash had never seen it open. He did not even think about it most days. It was just part of the fence, just part of the background of his life. But on this 6th day, the gate was open. Ash stopped walking. He stood very still and looked at the open gate. The wind was blowing through it. The gate was moving slowly back and forth, creaking like old bones. It was open just enough for a horse to walk through. But how? The gate had been locked. Ash had seen Marcus lock it many times. The old cowboy would close it carefully and then pull the chain and lock it tight. Marcus was careful about things like that. Then Ash understood. The storm. The night before, there had been a big windstorm. The wind was stronger than anything Ash had ever felt. It pushed the barn and made the house walls shake. It could have broken the lock. The wind was strong enough to do that. So the gate was open. Beyond the gate, Ash could see the trail that led north. It was the old trail, the one that Marcus never used anymore. It disappeared into the distance, going toward the mountains where the sky sometimes looked different, where there might be rain, where there might be water and food and life. Ash stood in front of this open gate for a long time. Maybe 1 hour, maybe 2. The sun was starting to move toward the west, getting ready to set. He could stay here on the ranch. He could wait for Marcus to come back. He could hope that the old man would return with food and water. He could believe that everything would be okay. Or he could go through the gate. If he went through the gate, he would never come back to the ranch. He would leave behind everything he knew. He would walk into the empty land where he had never been before. A weak horse like him might die out there. Probably he would die out there. But he would die trying to live, instead of dying while waiting for someone who might never come back. Ash took 1 step toward the gate, then another. His weak legs were shaking. His empty stomach was hurting. His dry throat was making it hard to breathe. But he kept walking. At the gate, he stopped 1 more time and looked back at the ranch. He looked at the barn where Marcus had been so kind to him. He looked at the pasture where he had spent his whole life. He looked at the stable where he had slept every night in the dark. Then Ash walked through the gate. Behind him, the wind pushed the gate closed. The lock had broken, but the gate still moved. It swung shut with a sound like goodbye. Ash did not look back. He walked onto the old trail, heading north toward the mountains, toward the unknown, toward something that might kill him or might save him. He walked in a legend. The old trail was nothing like the ranch. When Ash first walked onto it, his weak legs almost gave up. The ground was not soft like the pasture. It was hard and rocky. Sharp stones cut into his hooves with every step. The trail was narrow, and on both sides, the desert stretched out like an ocean of death. There was no water here. There was no grass. There was nothing but emptiness and heat and the sound of wind that wanted to blow everything away. Ash walked because he did not know what else to do. His body was already weak from days without real food. His throat was dry from drinking the bad water from the trough. His legs were shaking with each step. But something inside him, something that was not just body, but something deeper, something in his heart, was pushing him forward. He did not think about Marcus anymore. He did not think about the ranch. He did not think about anything except the next step. Left hoof, right hoof, left hoof, right hoof. That was all. That was everything. By the time the sun started to go down, Ash had walked maybe 2 miles. For a strong horse, 2 miles was nothing. 2 miles was just the beginning. But for a weak Colt who had not eaten in days and had nothing to drink except bad water, 2 miles felt like 1,000 miles. When the darkness came, Ash stopped under a rock that was shaped like a roof. It was not real shelter, but it was something. The rock protected him a little bit from the wind. He lay down on the hard ground and tried to sleep, but he could not sleep. His body hurt. His stomach was making sounds like an animal screaming. His throat was so dry that he could not swallow. He thought he was going to die that night. But when the morning came, Ash was still alive. He got up slowly and kept walking. The sun came up red and angry, already burning hot, even though the day was just beginning. The trail went up a little hill, and climbing that hill almost killed him. His legs were shaking. His breathing was loud and broken. Twice he fell down on the rocks, and twice he got back up. At the top of the hill, Ash saw something that gave him hope. It was water. Not much water, just a small pool in a place where rain had collected. It was dirty. It had leaves in it and maybe bugs. But it was water, and water was life. Ash drank deeply, drinking like he would never drink again. The water was cold, and the coldness hurt his throat, but he did not care. Nothing mattered except drinking. After he drank, something changed inside him. His body felt a little stronger. Not much stronger, but a little. A tiny bit of hope came back. For 2 more days, Ash walked. He found other small pools of water. He found some bushes with leaves that were not too dry to eat. He found a small lizard that he almost stepped on, and he wondered if he was wrong to feel glad that the lizard ran away. At least something small had a chance to live. But on the 3rd day of his journey, the weather changed. Dark clouds came from the west, moving fast like they were angry. The wind started to blow harder and harder. The temperature went down. The sky became so dark that it looked like the middle of the night, even though it was only the middle of the afternoon. Then the storm came. It was not just rain. It was not just wind. It was everything at once. Rain that fell so hard it was like being hit with stones. Wind that was so strong it was trying to push Ash off the trail. Lightning that burned the sky with white fire. Thunder that sounded like the world was breaking apart. Ash tried to keep walking, but he could not see anything. The rain was in his eyes. The wind was pushing him sideways. The rocks under his feet were slippery and dangerous. He was going to fall. He was going to die here on this empty trail. Then, just when he thought it was over, he saw something. Through the rain and the darkness, there was a shape. It looked like a cave or maybe a shelter made by rocks. Ash did not think about it. He just ran toward it. His weak legs found strength somewhere deep inside. His tired body moved faster than he had ever moved. He made it to the shelter just as the lightning got even worse. The cave was small and dark, and it smelled like old animals and dirt. But it was dry. It was protected. It was safe. Ash stood in the dark cave, breathing hard, shaking from cold and fear and exhaustion. Outside, the storm was becoming the worst storm Ash had ever known. The rain was pouring down like a river. The wind was howling like wolves. The lightning was coming every few seconds, showing the whole world for just a moment in bright white light. And in one moment of lightning, Ash saw something on the ground of the cave. There was a skeleton. It was a horse skeleton, very old, the bones dry and white and arranged in a way that showed the horse had been here a long time. This horse had come to this cave, maybe running from a storm like this one, and it had died here. It had been alone, and it had died alone, and no one had ever come to take the bones away. Ash looked at the skeleton for a long time. Then he looked away. He did not want to think about death. He did not want to think about what could happen to him. He just wanted to survive this night. He wanted to see the morning sun. He wanted to keep walking forward. The storm lasted all night. Ash did not sleep. He stood in the darkness of the cave and listened to the sound of the wind and the rain and the thunder. He thought about Marcus. He thought about the ranch. He thought about the kind old man who had touched his nose and promised to come back. And he thought about the skeleton and about how alone it must have felt. When the morning came, the storm was gone. The sky was clear. The sun was bright. Ash walked back out onto the trail, stepping over the bones of the horse that had died, and he kept walking north. He did not know how much longer he could survive. He did not know if he would make it, but he knew that he had to try. By the 7th day, Ash did not know if he was alive or dead anymore. His body had become something different from what it was before. His legs were thinner. His coat was dirty and torn from rocks and branches. His eyes were hollow, like he was looking at the world from very far away. He had not eaten real food in so long that he could not remember what food tasted like. He had not drunk clean water in days. But he was still walking. The trail had become easier and harder at the same time. It was easier because the mountains were getting closer. Ash could see them now, big and blue and real. It was harder because his body was running out of everything. His heart was beating strange and weak. His breathing was making sounds that scared him. Every step was like lifting his whole body with just his will, because his muscles had nothing left to give. That morning, on the 7th day, Ash smelled something new in the air. It was smoke. Fire smoke. The kind of smoke that came when something was burning. Ash stopped walking and tried to understand what this meant. His brain was tired. It did not work very well anymore. But his nose knew. Fire meant danger. Fire meant death. He kept walking anyway. As he walked, the smell got stronger. And then, rounding a bend in the trail, Ash saw it. Far away, maybe 1 mile, the hills were on fire. Not just a little fire. A big fire. A fire that was eating the dry grass and the trees and everything else it could reach. The smoke was black and thick and rising into the sky like a monster standing up from the ground. And in front of the fire, on the trail, there was a horse. Not a living horse moving. A horse that was lying down on the ground, not moving. And next to the horse, there was a man. Ash did not know how he understood this from so far away. But he did understand. Something in his broken heart recognized something. Something that was calling to him. He started to move faster. His weak legs found strength that should not have been there. He was running now, really running, not walking anymore. As he got closer, he could see the man more clearly. He was lying on his side. His body was not moving. His clothes were burned and torn. There was blood on the ground around him, dried and dark red. And then Ash recognized him. It was Marcus. The old cowboy was unconscious. He had fallen from his horse. Ash could see the strong horse lying dead on the trail, burned by fire. Marcus must have been riding toward the market, and the fire had come from somewhere, maybe from the east where fire had been burning for days. The strong horse, the one Marcus had chosen over Ash, had died trying to run from the flames. And Marcus had fallen, and now he was lying here, burning under the sun, maybe dying, maybe already dead. Ash did not think anymore. He just moved. He came to Marcus, and he touched the old man with his nose. Marcus did not move. Ash made a sound between a cry and a neigh, and he touched Marcus again, this time harder. Marcus's eyes opened, just barely, just a little bit. The old man looked at Ash, and his face changed, not with happiness, with shock, with disbelief, like he was seeing a ghost, like something impossible had just become real. Ash, Marcus said, his voice breaking like wooden fire. Al, how are you here? Ash did not try to answer. He just did what his heart was telling him to do. He got down on his knees next to Marcus. It was hard because his legs were shaking and weak. But he did it. He got down low enough that Marcus could reach him. The old man understood. With his last strength, with hands that were burned and hurt, Marcus pulled himself up. He put his arms around Ash's neck, and he climbed onto the small gray Colt's back. Ash felt the weight. It was heavy. Marcus was a big man, and Ash was small and weak. It was too much weight for his thin body to carry. But Ash did not care about that. He stood up slowly. He turned away from the burning hills, and he started to walk. He did not walk toward the market. He walked toward home, toward the ranch, toward the only place that made sense anymore. The fire was moving fast, but it was moving away from the trail. The smoke was terrible. Ash could barely see where he was going, but his body knew. His legs remembered the way. The small colt that everyone had said was too weak, the horse that nobody wanted, the animal that was supposed to die, was now carrying a man across burning land. Marcus held on to Ash's neck. He did not speak. He just held on. Sometimes he made sounds like he was hurt. Sometimes he was quiet. But he did not let go. Ash walked all through that day and into the night. He did not stop. He could not stop. If he stopped, Marcus might fall. If he stopped, the fire might catch them. If he stopped, everything would be over. He walked through the darkness. He walked through the smoke. He walked through pain that was bigger than his body. And on the 8th day, as the sun was rising, Ash saw something that made his heart almost break with hope. The ranch, the fence, the stable, the barn, home. The old gate was still broken. It was still open. Ash walked through it one more time. He walked to the barn. He walked to the house. And he stopped. He could not walk anymore. His legs gave out. His body fell to the ground. Marcus rolled off gently, landing in the dust near the water pump. Both of them lay there, unable to move, barely breathing, but alive. The mystery was over. The journey was finished. The impossible had been done by a horse that was too weak to do it. But the legend was just beginning. The neighbor's name was Thomas, and he was riding past the ranch on his way to town when he found them. He saw the two bodies lying in the dust near the house. One man, one horse, both not moving, both looking like death had already come for them. Thomas jumped off his horse and ran to Marcus first. The old cowboy was breathing, but barely. His chest was rising and falling like he was holding on to life with just his fingertips. His clothes were burned. His skin was burned. There was an ugly wound on his chest that looked like it had come from a fall or maybe from the sharp branch of a tree. Then Thomas saw Ash. The colt was lying on his side, his whole body shaking. His breathing was shallow and broken. His legs were bleeding. His hooves were cracked and broken. His coat was torn and dirty and caked with blood and dirt and ash from the fire. He looked like a horse that had walked through hell itself. Thomas called for help. He brought water from the pump. He brought cloths and medicine. He sent a boy on horseback to bring the doctor from the next town. For 3 days, he did not leave the ranch. He sat with Marcus, and he sat with Ash, and he waited to see which one would live and which one would die. On the 4th day, Marcus opened his eyes. The old cowboy looked at Thomas and tried to speak, but his voice was so broken that Thomas could barely hear the words. "The horse," Marcus whispered. "Is the horse alive?" Thomas nodded. "He is. He is barely alive, but he is alive." Marcus closed his eyes again, and a tear came down his burned face. That tear said everything. That tear said that Marcus did not care about his own pain. That tear said that the only thing that mattered was that Ash had survived. On the 6th day, Ash opened his eyes. The colt was lying in the barn, on clean hay that Thomas had spread for him. His body was still broken. His legs still hurt. But his eyes opened, and he looked around, and when he saw Marcus sitting in the corner, Marcus with bandages on his chest and arms, Marcus who was also healing, Marcus who was alive, Ash made a small sound. Not a neigh. Something quieter. Something like relief. Marcus came to the colt and put his hand on Ash's neck. He did not speak. He just touched the small gray horse, and that touch meant everything. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Slowly, both of them healed. Marcus's burns got better. His wound closed. He could walk again. He could ride again. Ash's legs got stronger. His hooves grew back. His coat became shiny again. The weak colt was becoming strong, not from the ranch, but from something else. From a journey. From a fire. From a love that had saved both of them. But neither of them was ever the same. Marcus never tried to sell Ash again. He never sent the colt away. Instead, he kept Ash at the ranch, and he changed how he treated all his animals. He stopped thinking about which horses were strong and which were weak. He started thinking about which horses needed him the most. And Thomas, the neighbor who had found them, began to tell the story. He told it in the saloon in town. He told it to other cowboys. He told it to travelers passing through. He told it to anyone who would listen. He described how he had found an old man and a weak colt, both barely alive, both saved by something that should not have been possible. That little gray horse, Thomas would say, his voice getting quiet. He was so weak that nobody thought he would live a year. But he walked through fire and darkness and terrible things to bring that old man home. I have never seen anything like it in my life. The story spread. It traveled from the saloon to other towns. It was told by cowboys around campfires. It was told by mothers to their children. It became bigger and bigger, more and more famous. People came from far away just to see the ranch, just to see the small gray horse that had done the impossible. Some people said that Ash was not just a horse. Some people said that Ash was a miracle. Some people said that the horse had magic inside him, that the kindness Marcus had given to him had created something special, something that could not be explained by nature. But Marcus never said any of these things. When people came to ask him questions, Marcus would just smile a little. He would say only this: Ash is not magic. Ash is just a horse who loved more than he was supposed to love. That is all. That is everything. Years passed. Many years. Marcus grew older. His hair became more white. His face became more wrinkled. He lived on that ranch until he was very old, and Ash lived with him. The colt grew into a strong horse. Not the biggest horse, not the strongest horse, but a horse with power in his heart that nothing could break. People wrote about them. They wrote stories about the weak colt and the kind old man. They wrote about the impossible journey. They made paintings of Ash walking through fire with Marcus on his back. The story became a legend, told and retold, changing a little bit each time, but always about the same thing: loyalty that costs everything and loses nothing. When Marcus finally died, at the age of 87, Ash was there. The horse stood beside the old man's bed, his nose touching Marcus's hand. And when Marcus took his last breath, Ash made a sound that broke the hearts of everyone who heard it. Ash lived for 5 more years after Marcus died. During those years, he did not do much. He just stood in the pasture and looked toward the mountains. He stood at the fence and watched the empty road. He was waiting for something. Maybe he was waiting for Marcus to come back. Maybe he was just remembering. When Ash finally died, the whole town came to the funeral. There were cowboys and ranchers and mothers and children and people from far away who had heard the story. They buried Ash next to Marcus under a big tree that gave shade and protection. And they put a stone there. On the stone, they wrote words that told the story. Here lies Ash the horse, who loved more than he was strong, who carried his friend through fire and darkness, who showed us that weakness is not the opposite of strength, but strength waiting to be tested. People still visit that grave. They come from everywhere, from other states, from other countries, from all over the world. They stand at the stone and they remember the story. And they think about what it means to love so much that you can do impossible things. The weak colt had become a legend, and his legend lived forever. Because some bonds are stronger than death. Some love is bigger than pain. And sometimes the smallest heart can carry the biggest love. That is the story of Ash. That is the story that will never die.